A major victory for college athletes. The NCAA has cleared the way for players to make money off of their personal fame. The move comes as several states are set to pass laws making this type of compensation legal. Athletes will be allowed to profit from their autographs, product endorsements, personal appearances, social media posts, their name, image, and likeness. The ruling applies to more than 450,000 students across all three divisions of the NCAA. Joining me now on CBSN Boston to discuss the NCAA ruling is UNH professor Michael McCann, who's also the founding director of the school's Sports and Entertainment Law Institute. So, Michael, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us. This changes how student athletes will be able to profit from their name, image, and likeness. What was your reaction to the ruling?
Sure, Paula. Thanks for having me. So, yeah, this was not a surprise at all. I think the larger question is going to be, why did it take so long? Ed O'Bannon, the former UCLA basketball star who brought the historic case over players being illegally used in video games, that was brought 12 years ago. So this is not a new issue. The NCAA hoped that Congress would provide a remedy by passing a federal NIL statute. That never happened. And what we saw before July 1st was a group of states basically take over, saying athletes in our state, college athletes in our states, are going to be able to sign endorsement deals and influencing social contracts and those types of things. So, and not a surprise, the NCAA really had no choice. The other option for the NCAA was to go to court and to seek restraining orders in each of these states. But by the time it got to the end of June, we're talking more than a dozen states that either had a statute or a governor's executive order. So honestly, they really had no choice.
They really had no choice at this point. And it's interesting because of the Ed O'Bannon case. I think the video game really brought it home to a lot of people that those student athletes weren't profiting off of their names and their likeness in things like video games, the jersey sales at the college bookstore, but also even a college athlete wasn't allowed to run a summer camp that had their name on it and profit off anything that involved their name and allow them to make money. So this really doesn't affect only the super elite athletes, does it? It allows all college athletes in some capacity to create income based upon their abilities and their standing with their scholarship, right?
That's right. And we've already seen athletes who are not widely known to the average sports fan land endorsement deals or contracts to do influencing on social media. There are some athletes in a variety of sports that have big followings on social media that are going to benefit from name, image, and likeness. And then there are, as you referenced, opportunities just merely to sponsor a summer camp, maybe not make a lot of money, but get some amount of money that can help a college student who plays a sport. So yeah, the scope of opportunities, I think initially when we think about name, image, and likeness, there's a tendency to think about the big sneaker deal, but that's going to probably be pretty rare. I think we're more likely to see smaller deals or deals that capitalize on an athlete's social media presence. And we know that that's not just football players and men's basketball players. In fact, there are many women who will do quite well with name, image, and likeness.
There might be a woman college tennis player who has camps, or a swimmer who sells swimwear, right, with their logo on it. There are all kinds of opportunities open to them now, which leads me to the next question, Michael, which is, are they going to have to file a W-2 now? These kids are going to need agents, accountants, lawyers. This really becomes the Wild Wild West, doesn't it?
Yeah, they'll have to pay taxes, and they'll likely be independent contractors of the third party, whether it's the apparel company or the camp. So in most cases, they'll get all of their money up front. I guess it depends on how they structure the arrangement, but they won't pay taxes initially. So yeah, they'll have to be mindful of the same issues that all adults face with earnings, that there are tax consequences. But I think the flip side is it's better to make some money than none. So they'll have to do that. And we know that some schools are going to push to help educate athletes. And it's really not just college athletes, I would say. There are all sorts of students on campuses that have significant followings, cheerleaders, esports players, musicians, actors, artists, they're all in positions where they can make money while in college in ways that I know I couldn't when I was in college. So I think it behooves schools to think about educating.
Sure, yeah. The NFTs will be incredible. But let's talk about, those are the great things. And I think all of us really understand how a lot of students, it just wasn't right that the coaches had the shoe deals and the schools were making billions of dollars off TV contracts, but that these students weren't able to make money. But then on the other side, I mean, are we turning college athletics now into the minor leagues? Are coaches going to be dealing with agents and negotiating with agents now? And really, what does that do to the role of the NCAA in all this?
Well, I think we're already there, to be honest. And Paula, you referenced the coaches making a lot of money. There are coaches who make, over $10 million a year. So I think the sort of traditional notion of amateur athletics in college sports is gone. It's been gone for decades, especially with TV deals. Now it's really about sharing some of that wealth with the players. Yeah. And there will be consequences, right? There will be college athletes that are taken advantage of, just like any young person or older person gets taken advantage of. But there are laws in place that in Massachusetts there are certainly protective laws that could help there. And in other states as well, there's licensing of agents. So, yeah, I mean, there will be issues, but I would say, these issues are present in other aspects of college sports, but now we're going to see it with players getting some of the wealth. Right.
I mean, I just, as a mother who's been through it over the last couple of years, I cannot imagine the heat that just got turned up on youth sports in America, now that there's so much more money on the line. Let's just talk about one more thing, two more things. In terms of balance, if you have a situation where we've seen in the Final Four of the NCAA tournament, for instance, in basketball, Butler and Gonzaga make the Final Four just as much as Kentucky and Duke. But now, if you have a bunch of booster alumni who pool their money, or their local business owners, can they go and tell an athlete, hey, come to our school, don't go somewhere else, and we'll sponsor you. You'll be the face of our restaurant chain or our car dealership. I mean, is that really going to hurt the smaller schools like a Butler?
Well, that's supposed to not be allowed. So under the NCAA rules and state statutes, endorsement opportunities can't be used as inducements to attend a particular college. And a booster paying an athlete for purposes of recruiting him or her or keeping them at school would be considered pay for play. And that would be a violation of NCAA rules. So that continues. Now, I think it's fair to ask, and your question alludes to this, how do you police that? Right. And there will certainly be gray areas that will come up that will be hard to know whether or not an endorsement deal is really pay for play. Sure. Some states, like Florida, for instance, has a market value component, a requirement that an endorsement deal be market value, although we don't know how that's applied, and it's kind of an ambiguous phrase. So yeah, we'll probably see some efforts by boosters to use NIL as ways to do pay for play, but it will be up to schools and the NCAA to try to police that. So they're going to have to police that. I mean, if you take a local example, when Doug Flutie came out of Natick High School and went to Boston College, where he really didn't get a scholarship till a little bit later on, and then, clearly he was a contender by his junior year, didn't win the Heisman till senior year, but another bigger school might have come along and wooed him away. Are we going to see a lot of big star athletes just transferring? Depending on, bigger school, bigger contracts? Well, the NCAA has relaxed its transfer rules, which had traditionally required players to sit out for a season before they're eligible to play. There has been pushback against that because coaches have left quickly and left their players and switched schools. So there's an argument that why is it that coaches, the Doug Flutie example, what about the coach that gets recruited by the bigger school and then leaves his or her players? So, I think we see that across the board. But Doug Flutie, there's a great example of a player that both of us remember him. He, in college, would have certainly done well with name, image, and likeness. Absolutely. In New England, every New England business would have endorsed Doug Flutie. I bet he stays at Boston College in that scenario because he would have made more. He was a local hero, right? I mean, he would have been a great illustration of someone that NIL, I think, actually helps the school. I mean, they can't directly do it, but I think it helps the school, in effect, keep a star player like that, especially one with local ties.
And the one last thing, because I know you've got to go, there has been some opposition to online sports betting here in Massachusetts, where other states have gone ahead. Dozens of states already had it. One of the arguments was, you shouldn't be betting against college kids. Is that going to change the game in terms of online betting as well, this decision?
Well, I think we have seen some states adopt sports betting statutes that prohibit betting on colleges, at least colleges in those states. So I still think Massachusetts can have sports betting, even if it limits betting on schools in Massachusetts. If that's a way of getting enough political traction to have it, I'm sure the supporters of that would be okay with that, because there's so many other things to bet on in sports that, and also, I mean, candidly, I think in Massachusetts and New England generally, it's more of a pro sports area. So the sort of absence of betting on college sports may not be as significant, but I don't know. It's more of a political question.
All right. Well, UNH professor Michael McCann, thanks so much for your time. We are certainly walking into a whole new world as of now. Thanks so much.